Okay, so I was born March 25th, 1981. I can't draw very well, so my friend Kim is going to do that part. March 25th, 1981. My mom said that she was watching a horror movie when she went into labor with me. So there's that. I had 3 siblings, and we lived in a lower middle class part of Connecticut. My dad was a restaurant supply salesman. He sold forks and knives and dishwashers and stuff like that. He worked a lot, and my mom was pretty hands-off when it came to parenting. I'd describe the majority of my childhood as wonderfully unsupervised. I was a pretty bad kid. There were these train tracks in our backyard, and we'd hang glass jars of mayonnaise off of the bridge, so the jars would smash on the windshield of the train as it drove by. Also, this one time, my brother and I lit the tree fort on fire. We didn't mean to. We just wanted to have a small fire in our wooden tree fort. I didn't hate school, but it wasn't great. I was always in trouble. Breaking something, school trouble, teacher trouble. I remember vividly this constant anxiety I felt for most of my early school years. It was a constant tension that my parents or teachers were going to find out about whatever trouble I was up to. Getting in trouble really escalated when I got to high school. I was always in the vice principal's office, then detention, then suspension. Freshman year was pretty uneventful, but by my second year I was trying to find my place in school and started hanging out with some of the really bad kids. I got into a lot of fights, and it was around this time that I discovered smoking weed and drinking alcohol. This was also around the time my parents told us they were getting a divorce. That didn't go well at all. I put all the blame on my mom. I really didn't like her then. One night we got into this big argument, and she ended the fight by saying, "Do what I say or get out of this house." And I left. I was 15 years old, and I ran out at 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. Okay, so 15 years old and on my own. I stayed with some friends for a while and eventually moved in with these 2 slightly older girls. Naturally, one of those girls became my girlfriend, and a few weeks after I moved in with them, my girlfriend got in a fight with her roommate, and she told me she wanted to leave. So her and I got in her Honda, and we left. We drove from Connecticut to Virginia, where my big brother Van was in college. I was happy in Virginia, but after 3 months there, my girlfriend got pregnant. So we moved back to Connecticut, and I dropped out of high school. We lived in her friend's basement for a while and eventually found an apartment. I worked in this seafood restaurant. I was a dishwasher. I made $8 an hour. Then, the following April, just after my 17th birthday, Owen was born, and I was a dad. Now, I don't know that teenagers are emotionally equipped for the magic that is having a child, but the feeling I had in the hospital just after he was born, it was similar to Christmas morning when I was little. It was like that feeling you have when you get exactly what you want. We moved into a trailer park. It was cheap and in a less dangerous neighborhood. And we were poor. We were really poor. We were even on welfare for a little while, but I never liked the idea of handouts. Slowly things settled. Life was okay. I made a little bit more money in the restaurant, and when he was about a year and a half old, we drove into New York City and stayed at my brother's apartment in Brooklyn. It was our first vacation. My older brother had just gotten an iMac, one of those funny-shaped blue ones. Actually, this is the exact iMac. This was the first iMac you could edit video on, and we made this little movie of taking Owen to the zoo. I loved the process. When we got back to Connecticut, I immediately maxed out my only credit card and bought my own computer. I spent all my free time making these little movies. And for the first time in my life, I felt like by telling these stories, I had a voice. Then, for a lot of good reasons, Owen's mom dumped me. It sucked. I didn't know what to do. Now, before the breakup, I had this plan, this dream, to move to New York City in like 5 years. But I just kind of said to hell with it and decided to move to New York City immediately. It was June 2001. I was 20 years old and I moved to New York City. I was here to become a filmmaker. Filmmaker sounded so much cooler than dishwasher. This was, without a doubt, the hardest time of my life. I didn't know anyone, I didn't have a plan, and for the first time ever, I didn't get to see my kid every day. He stayed in Connecticut with his mom, and I'd go back to be with him 3 days a week. It made me so sad. I didn't want Owen to grow up and think his dad was a loser. That town in Connecticut it felt like a dead end. That first summer in New York City, I worked as a bike messenger, and eventually this artist named Tom Sachs, somebody my brother knew, hired me for $10 an hour. I put aside $100 a week because that's what it would cost to get back to Connecticut to see Owen. No matter what, I wouldn't touch that travel money. At the end of that summer, my 3-month sublet was up, and I moved into a friend's couch in the financial district of downtown Manhattan. My buddy said that I could stay there for a month, and the day I moved in was September 2nd, 2001. The blast from the first plane knocked me out of bed. And by the time the second plane hit, I was on my bike trying to get away. The blast from the impact of the plane knocked me off my bike to the ground. My dad called me that morning, and he said to me, "It's time to come home, time to move back to Connecticut." And I thought about it, but I figured I could barely afford to eat, I didn't have anywhere to stay, no education, few prospects. I thought there's just no way it could get any harder than this. And if I could figure out how to get through this, I'd be okay. And so I did. I committed everything to New York City, to my big dream. And that's when things started to turn around. My manual labor job turned into a real job with real opportunities. As a studio manager for that artist, a friend of a friend freaked out after the World Trade Center attacks and left the city. I took over his super cheap apartment. All the while I was making movies about whatever subject matter I could come up with. I worked with my brother Van. We made movies for anyone that would pay us. Birthday videos, editing actor reels. We literally said yes to anything that involved picking up a camera. And then, 2003, I got my first iPod. And when the battery died a year and a half later, I got really pissed off and made a video about their dead battery policy. And I put that online. Now, this was like 3 years before YouTube, but that video exploded. This was back in the day when the word viral was used to describe an STD, not a video.
Casey, started with you. I got the first iPod, Generation 1, had it for about...
And all of a sudden, people started asking about other movies we had made. In 2004, a video series we had shot in my apartment called Science Experiments was invited to be shown at the Sao Paulo Biennial in Brazil. Things started to get good. I had a little bit of money, and I was able to spend more time with Owen. And for the first time, he and I started taking trips together. What's the pretzel for?
The dolphin.
You're gonna feed the pretzel to the dolphin. Yeah? When we traveled, I felt like I was able to get to know him in a way that was entirely new. When we traveled, it was just us. And I loved that. In 2006, I met this guy named Tom Scott. He ran a group of local TV channels, and he hired Van and me to make some videos. The videos came out great, and he made this big offer to us. He simply said, "I want to bankroll a big project you guys do." Now, I've always understood luck to be where opportunity meets preparation. And this was a big opportunity, and we were certainly prepared. So he agreed to fund us for a year. It wasn't a lot of money, just enough. So my brother Van and I lived and documented stories from our lives. Every couple of weeks, we'd edit these experiences together to form like a 25-minute movie, sort of. Eventually we had 8 of those 25-minute episodes, and we called that a TV series. Then in 2008, we sold that 8-episode TV series to HBO for just under $2 million. It was a big deal. The HBO show premiered in 2010. Then my brother and I stopped working together. I produced a couple of movies, and ultimately I just shifted all of my focus to YouTube. I'd found my voice telling stories with my videos back in that trailer park, and I had finally found an audience for it on the internet. Owen turned 16 a couple months ago. He's taller than me now, he's smarter than me, and he's definitely better looking than me. We've never stopped traveling. I don't think we ever will. And I owe that kid a lot. The first 2 decades of my life were spent being told I was wrong, not fitting in. But this last decade of my life, you know those days when you're in a rush to get somewhere and you catch every green light? That's what it's felt like. I'm 33 years old, and I have no intention of slowing down.
Oh, it's a world of lonely faces. Oh, it's a world of many places. Oh, oh, follow that dream. Oh, it's a world of funny faces. To get home, you have to touch all the bases. Oh, oh, follow that dream. Like flying a kite, you can't lose sight, you can't let go. Oh, oh, follow that dream. Setting sun don't mean the end, though it could. So get the job done, fade, and follow that dream. Though silly it seems, it'll get you through your